what Ben did in lockdown is he improved. That's all you can say about anybody. You know, you've got to embrace what's in front of you. You've got to adapt. And it sort of seemed fitting in some ways that he was there to hit the winning runs and get us over the line. It was a big year for us, and to win that Player of the Year on a year when we win a trophy, it just makes it a little bit more special.
Pete, it's Ben Duckett who's taken the honours in the end as Player of the Year. He was the first player pretty much to return to Trent Bridge as well when he came back to training in that England setup. What sort of Ben Duckett returned for 2020 compared to the Ben Duckett we saw in 2019?
Well, quite a lot of difference actually, in loads of different ways. I think the first thing was he was settled at the club because he's been here for a year, and I think that just allowed him just to be more himself. Physically, he completely changed, really. Physically became one of our fitter guys, lost some weight, and became what I would say, you know, a proper sportsman in that respect. He was always a good player, but now he'd matured into himself as a player. And we saw that when he played. He became, you know, he was always a decent fielder, and then he became one of our outstanding fielders. In the 2020 especially, he was arguably our best fielder in the tournament, and that showed in the final again. And things like running between the wickets, everything about his game then grew from a physical point of view. From a technical point of view, how he went about it, he worked so hard in the winter. He had a real clear picture of what he wanted. He had a couple of things he wanted to sort of evolve a bit and refine to get better. He thought to make him a better player. He had a tough season actually in many ways in 2019. And he worked tirelessly at it all the way through, didn't lose focus. We saw him playing really well before he went in lockdown. And then he came back in and he had this really tough period because the first couple of games he was playing really well and he got a couple of good balls actually and got out. And I think where I give him most credit is he didn't change. He stuck to his guns, he knew what he'd worked at, and then it all came good for him in the back half, you know, scoring a big 100 in the last game. And played beautifully. He played really, really well, but also was influential around the group and the team. Really played for the team and for the group, which I think was really influential. And he took that form straight into 2020. You know, his role in 2020 was one where he was the glue within the team. You know, scored at a really good rate, often attacking the boundary through gaps, really good manipulator of the ball, and has found loads of ways to score a good rate when needed, especially against spin. And we saw that in the final. You know, he gauged that run chase brilliantly, and it was a credit to how he had the work he'd done before. You know, he took us home in what he made seem a very simple run chase, and it wasn't in any way, shape or form. He built a great partnership with Pete Trigo, and then with the captain, Dan Christian. And it sort of seemed fitting in some ways that he was there to hit the winning runs and get us over the line. So I'm really pleased for him because he's done the work. He's done the work, he's committed to others, and he's the rightful winner of what is a brilliant award to win. You know, it's a big club. It was a big year for us, and to win that Player of the Year on a year when we win a trophy, it just makes it a little bit more special.
You talk about his single-mindedness, his trust in his own method, and things I suppose like going to South Africa in the winter as well and following his own path. How important is it for a player when they get to that point where they've got that much faith in their own method?
Well, I think it comes from a drive within. He got a burning drive inside. You know, he had a point to prove. You know, he'd moved clubs, hadn't gone exactly as he wanted to at the start, and he had a point to prove. And the question for me, he had probably one of the tougher ones you'll get in the semi-final of the 2020 the year before, you know, which was a really tough one to take. And how people react to that is absolutely crucial. Now, he reacted in exactly the way you want a player to. He looked at his game, he looked at what he went about, and he adjusted some things. He didn't have to change his game. He was a good player. He was always a good player. But he adjusted things in a way that made him a better player and a better bloke around the team and the group and everything, really. So, you know, I can't give him enough credit. You know, speaking to him since the season, he's still really driven to then move that on again and start to take it again. So he's got strong ambitions in the game. We've got strong ambitions for him in the game. And, you know, it's lovely now that he wears the green and gold and he goes out and plays for Notts.
How impressed were you with the way he adapted to that number 3 slot so well this summer in the Red Bull team?
Yeah, he did what he needed to do was basically sometimes you've got to see off the new ball. You look to pace the innings again there. You control the pace of the innings. He did a really good job. Probably the one of the real key times was I think against might have been Yorkshire, I can't remember. We had a really tough session at the end of the day when him and Joe Clark batted for about an hour and a half. We'd lost a couple of quick wickets. Hassan and Benny Slater had got out. And it was overcast, it was doing around, and both of them just knuckled down and did the hard work. Didn't expose anybody else in the dressing room, played beautifully, showed a lot of character and a lot of skill to get through that session. And that summed it up. When it's flat and the sun's out and you can skip along, great. But you've got to also understand there's times when you've got responsibility at the top of the order that you've got to be able to play the role that's needed for the team. And that was very much, that hour and a half was very much where both of Joe as well, they did the role needed to get us through to the next day when we could then go on and get a good score.
And in terms of those T20 games, one that springs to mind quite quickly is the Yorkshire game here on Bank Holiday Monday. What does it say about his character to not just have those scores, but to be the man that sees the team over the line?
Well, I mean, often I always say to the lads, you know, credit go to the person in a run chase anyway, any batter, the bloke that walks off not out, the two people that walk not out, because they've won the game. Whatever went on before, they got us over the line. And every time you get out near the end of a game, you expose somebody else to the pressure. And so, you know, for him to walk off on that day, but also in the final, and that seemed, as I say, it always seems like an easy run chase when two people get in and take you home. We saw, you know, we've seen the year before, we saw in the tough quarter-final against Leicester, and credit how they played, how easy it is in 2020 for suddenly the game to change momentum. And the sign of a really good side is that they don't allow that. They take their opportunities. We probably did a long way to win that game in the last 4 overs of their innings. The way Jake Ball and Dan Christian bowled, and this didn't score a boundary. So that opened the door for us, because they were probably 20 lighter than they would have thought they were going to get. The key was then, could we drive it home? Lose 3 quick wickets. Momentum's probably moved a bit to them, but actually no, because we know we've got depth. Ben and Pete Trigo did exactly what you need to do. Still played on the front foot, but played with great skill. And that partnership took us really to the point of being, you know, close to home, and then Ben just took the responsibility. You know, I think he just decided we're off now and we're going to take what's ours, and took us home.
And batsman and singer over this year as well, playing his part in the charitable effort in lockdown with the frontline challenge.
Yeah, stick to batting, Ben, that's all I'll say.
But what does that say about the way he sort of coped with lockdown and the challenges that brought that no one's prepared for, really?
Well, I mean, what Ben did in lockdown is he improved. That's all you can say about anybody. You know, you've got to embrace what's in front of you. You've got to adapt. You know, he came back to us fit and strong, and he came back first in that because he was going in with the England one-day squad. So, you know, myself, James Pipe, we were in here. He followed Stuart Broad into working at Trent Bridge. And you knew straight away that you saw him, one, physically looked in fantastic shape, but two, he'd mentally moved somewhere else whereby he was patient, he knew what he wanted, and he built up through, and he worked extremely hard to get himself ready to go into that bubble. And then it was a tough one in some ways because he didn't play, but you had to be around, but he still loved it, took the opportunity, happy to be there, and then came back to us and straight away fitted straight back in. So that to me is, there's a consistency about how he was acting and moving, which I think starts to come with maturity.